I moved into Maplewood Estates thinking it would be peaceful. Quiet streets, trimmed lawns, neighbors who waved, and a decent HOA that supposedly kept things organized. My first mistake was believing that organized meant reasonable. The president of the HOA, Karen Whitmore, had a short haircut, a clipboard surgically attached to her hand, and a permanent expression that said, "I smell non-compliance." Everything was fine until December rolled in. I decorated my front yard like I always did. Just a few nutcrackers, some fairy lights, and a wreath. The neighborhood looked cheerful except for Karen's place. Her house had nothing but a sign that said, "Remember, decorations must comply with HOA Policy 4.3. One morning, I found a bright pink envelope on my doorstep. Notice of violation: decorative figures of abnormal height exceeds HOA standards. Apparently, my 2 4-foot nutcrackers were creepy and non-compliant. I laughed at first thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. Karen had actually filed a complaint. I went to her door, politely asking if we could talk it out. She smiled that fake HOA smile and said, "It's not personal. We just want the neighborhood to feel comfortable." Then she added, "Those nutcrackers look like they're watching people." That's when I realized this wasn't about rules. This was about control. And if Karen wanted a holiday war, she'd picked the wrong front yard to mess with. The next day, another letter appeared. Second warning. Same pink paper. Same ridiculous tone. Failure to comply may result in a fine of $200 per day. I swear the HOA had a printer fueled by spite. I decided to reread the bylaws. After all, knowledge is power, and apparently my Christmas spirit needed legal defense. There it was. Outdoor decorations exceeding 5 feet must be approved. My nutcrackers were 4 feet. Karen had lied. So I emailed her, attaching a picture of me standing beside the decorations with a measuring tape. My message was short. "Dear Karen, I have reviewed the HOA code. My nutcrackers are well within height limits. Merry Christmas. Sincerely, the guy with a ruler." Within hours, she replied. Regardless of measurement, several residents have expressed discomfort. Please remove them to maintain neighborhood harmony. Discomfort. Right. As if 2 wooden soldiers were traumatizing children. I ignored her. 2 days later, a new notice of fine appeared. $400 total. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my cocoa. I'd been fined for holiday discomfort. That night, my neighbor Paul knocked. "Dude, Karen's talking about your nutcrackers at the HOA meeting. She called them sinister guards." That's when I knew this wasn't about decorations. It was personal. I wasn't backing down. If Karen wanted to make this official, I'd play by the rules, but I'd play better. I started documenting everything: camera ready, emails saved. The battle for Christmas had officially begun. By the weekend, my nutcrackers were practically local celebrities. People slowed their cars to stare. Some laughed. Some shook their heads. Then came Linda from 2 houses down. "You know Karen's going door to door getting signatures?" she whispered. "Signatures for what?" I asked. "To make creepy decor a bannable offense." I nearly spit out my coffee. Creepy decor? What does that even mean? Linda shrugged. "It's Karen. She thinks your nutcrackers glare at her. So now wooden soldiers had attitude." Fantastic. Later that day, I spotted Karen across the street chatting with Mr. and Mrs. Dawson, clipboard in hand. She pointed at my house dramatically, then scribbled something down. The Dawsons nodded nervously. That night, I got another email. "We've received multiple complaints. Please attend the HOA meeting Monday." Oh, I'd attend. Before the meeting, I printed every rule, every photo, and every timestamp of Karen's harassment. Paul even offered to back me up. "I'm bringing popcorn," he said. When Monday came, the meeting was pure theater. Karen stood at the front, holding a slideshow titled, "Maintaining Holiday Decorum." She actually had slides, my yard photos circled in red like a crime scene. When she finished, I raised my hand. "Are nutcrackers illegal now, or are we banning joy?" A few chuckles broke the tension. Karen glared. "You're disrupting order." "No, Karen," I said calmly. "You're abusing it." And from that moment on, the neighborhood war went public. I didn't expect the meeting to become an episode of reality TV, but that's exactly what happened. Karen strutted around like Judge Judy with a vendetta, while I just sat there smiling. Mr. Miller, she began, these decorations have caused discomfort to several residents. Name one, I said. Confidentiality prevents me from. So? None. Snickers rippled through the crowd. Paul leaned over. You're killing her. Karen slammed her clipboard. This isn't a joke. The HOA exists to maintain standards. I pulled out my printed bylaws. And those standards clearly say decorations under 5 feet need no approval. She blinked, clearly unprepared. Well, they feel taller. Do feelings rewrite measurements now? The laughter that followed could have powered the streetlights. Karen's face turned redder than Rudolph's nose. After the meeting, she stormed up to me. You're making a mockery of this community. Karen, I said, you made it easy. The next day, new rules appeared taped to every mailbox. Effective immediately. Any holiday decoration deemed disturbing by the HOA is subject to removal. No vote. No notice. Just Karen. That's when I started recording videos. Every letter, every interaction. I uploaded the first clip to a local Facebook group titled Maplewood Madness. Within hours, the post exploded. Comments poured in, most siding with me. Finally, someone stood up to her. Karen strikes again. Team Nutcracker. The best part? The HOA couldn't delete the internet. Round 1 went to me. A week passed and Karen didn't back off. She started her own campaign, quiet, sneaky, and very Karen. I caught her pacing near my yard with a flashlight at 10 p.m., muttering about unauthorized lighting angles. The next morning, I got another notice. Apparently, my Christmas lights were too reflective. Reflective? On lights? I replied with a photo of Karen's car headlights shining into my window and wrote, "Please find yourself next." By now, neighbors were openly mocking her. Someone hung a sign that said, "Caution. Holiday spirit ahead." Another decorated their yard with inflatable nutcrackers just to annoy her. The street looked like a toy soldier parade. Karen retaliated by banning inflatables. At this point, it wasn't about rules, it was about ego. She'd lost control and everyone knew it. Then one morning, I found a folded letter in my mailbox, unsigned but typed. Watch your step. HOA bylaws can be flexible. Creepy, right? I installed a camera facing my yard and driveway. The next night, it caught Karen sneaking a measuring tape onto my lawn. She was measuring the distance between my nutcrackers and the sidewalk. That was my breaking point. I compiled all my footage and forwarded it to the HOA's Regional Oversight Committee. If Karen wanted a game of rules, she was about to play by mine. I just didn't know yet that she had skeletons hiding behind her perfect picket fence. When I sent my report, I didn't expect much. But a week later, I got a call from the HOA's regional administrator. We've received multiple complaints about President Whitmore, he said. Would you mind forwarding all your documentation? Would I mind? I've been waiting for this. I sent everything, emails, video clips, photos of her rule-breaking midnight patrols. Then curiosity struck. What if I looked into Karen's property records? Public info, right? Turns out her fence was 2 feet taller than allowed. Her shed violated setback limits. And she hadn't paid her HOA dues in 3 months. Oh, sweet irony. I compiled it all neatly, labeled the Karen files, and brought a copy to the next HOA meeting. When Karen began her usual lecture, "We must protect neighborhood values," I calmly stood up. "Speaking of values, Karen, how's that unapproved shed of yours doing?" Her jaw dropped. The room went silent. I held up my packet. For the record, our esteemed president has multiple violations, unpaid dues, and unauthorized structures. I have documents and timestamps. Someone actually clapped. Paul whispered. "Bro, you just ended her career." Karen sputtered. "That's private." I grinned. "So were my decorations, remember?" The room erupted in whispers. The board announced they'd review her actions. That night, I got one final note on pink paper. "You'll regret this." Maybe. But she'd regret it more. When petty people lose control, they don't apologize, they escalate. Karen was no exception. The day after the meeting, she plastered flyers around the neighborhood claiming I was creating division and harassing the HOA. Half the neighbors laughed. The other half ignored her. But Karen wasn't satisfied with losing her audience. She wanted chaos. At 6 a.m. I heard loud banging outside. I peeked out and saw her trying to pull my Nutcracker decorations off the lawn. "Karen!" I shouted. "That's vandalism." She froze, then hissed, "You're violating peace ordinances." I walked out, phone recording. "Smile for the HOA committee." She stormed off, muttering something about legal action. Later, I got an email from the board, without her signature this time, saying she'd been temporarily suspended pending investigation. The message might as well have come with confetti. That night, Paul dropped by with pizza. "You actually dethroned her," he laughed. "Not yet," I said. "She'll be back." Sure enough, the next day she stood outside, filming my house like a paparazzo. "Documenting evidence," she yelled when I asked what she was doing. So I waved and said, "Me too," holding up my phone. That clip got 12,000 views online under the caption "A Karen Meltdown in 4K. It wasn't just a neighborhood story anymore. It was internet legend. And the comments gave me an idea so deliciously petty I couldn't resist. After Karen's public meltdown, I decided it was time for poetic justice. She called my Nutcrackers creepy? Fine. I'd show her creepy. I spent the next few days building something magnificent, life-size mannequins dressed as the entire HO board. I bought clearance Santa suits, clipboards, and wigs. Each mannequin wore a name tag: Karen, Diane, Mark, and Tom. I even glued little HOA badges on their chests. When I set them up on the lawn, they looked like an army of bureaucrats standing guard. I positioned them so they faced Karen's house directly, smiling politely like passive-aggressive Christmas spirits. The reaction? Immediate. Within an hour, Karen stormed outside shouting, "You can't do this." I waved from my porch. "They're decorations, Karen. Festive, even." She called the HOA hotline. Except she wasn't the president anymore. The interim board told her, as long as they're under 5 feet, there's no violation. Checkmate. Neighbors came by taking photos, laughing hysterically. Someone brought cocoa and called it the Nutcracker Parade. Kids loved it. Karen, meanwhile, nearly combusted from rage. She threatened lawsuits, police calls, and even decor regulation reform. I just added Christmas hats to my mannequins and a sign that said, "Spreading HO-approved holiday cheer." By nightfall, my display went viral. Thousands of likes, hundreds of comments, and one very defeated Karen hiding behind her curtains. Revenge never looked so festive. I woke up the next morning to chaos, in the best way possible. My video of the HOA mannequin display had hit local news. Headlines read, "Resident stands up to HOA tyrant with hilarious holiday display." People from other neighborhoods came to see it. Kids posed for pictures, carolers added it to their route, and a bakery even delivered cookies shaped like mini clipboards. The community spirit was alive again, and all because Karen tried to kill Christmas. The HOA interim president, Mark, one of my mannequin inspirations, called me. "Listen," he said, "we're holding a vote next week to review leadership positions. You've become kind of a symbol of pettiness maybe, but justice too." Karen tried to spin the story, posting on Nextdoor, "Don't believe the lies. That man has a personal vendetta." Someone replied, "We just like the decorations, Karen." That reply got 600 likes. I added new accessories to my mannequins every day. Tiny mugs labeled HOA Tears, a sign reading Spirit of Compliance. Meanwhile, Karen's own house sat undecorated, dark, and miserable. One night, I saw her peeking from her blinds. For a split second, I almost felt bad. Then I remembered the fines, the notes, and the humiliation she dished out to everyone for years. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It was redemption. And next week's vote? That would be the cherry on top. With the HOA vote looming, I realized I needed a campaign strategy. Not for president, mind you, I just wanted sanity restored. I printed flyers highlighting Karen's violations, her obsession with Nutcracker height, and her midnight patrols. The slogan? HO, less Karen, more Christmas. Neighbors laughed. Some even added glitter. I made a short video tour of the yard, showcasing the life-size mannequins and pointing out each ridiculous violation Karen had attempted to enforce. "Note the smiling bureaucrats," I narrated. "All under 5 feet, completely legal and completely festive." Word spread fast. Kids brought their parents over just to see the display, posing for photos with the mannequins. Local news even called me for a short clip. Karen called me that night, furious. "You think this is funny?" she hissed through the phone. "I think it's Christmas," I replied calmly. And apparently the community agrees. By the day of the vote, my driveway had become a spectacle. Neighbors waving signs that said, "Team Nutcracker," and "Keep Karen in check." Even people from other streets came to show support. When the HOA board gathered, Karen tried to speak first. I watched as her words stumbled over themselves. She presented her case, citing community distress caused by Nutcrackers. Then the crowd erupted in laughter. A few people stood up, waving my flyers and pointing out her own violations. By the end of the meeting, Karen was fuming, powerless, and red-faced. She attempted one last dramatic flourish, but the interim president cut her off politely, saying, "We appreciate your dedication, Karen, but the community has spoken." I smiled quietly. Justice was near. The mannequins stood silently behind me, proud witnesses to a holiday victory. With Karen gone, I thought the mannequin spectacle might come down, but the neighborhood had other ideas. Kids loved them. Parents loved them. Even local news returned to film segments on my HOA heroes. I kept them on the lawn, subtly rotating them to face different streets. Some mornings, a mannequin would watch Karen's former house, others would salute arriving mail carriers. Everyone took turns taking selfies with them. A few neighbors added accessories: tiny scarves, sunglasses, and even little coffee mugs labeled HOA fuel. It became a weekly tradition. One day, a woman from across the street brought her cat dressed as a miniature board member. The display grew into a full-on holiday attraction. I had unintentionally created Maplewood Estate's most famous landmark. Karen tried to intervene once, sending an email demanding their removal, citing disrespectful representation of HOA officials. I replied politely, "They are decorations under 5 feet, fully compliant with the bylaws, and bringing community joy." No response. The interim board sent me a note of thanks, joking that the mannequins had raised neighborhood morale by 200%. I started a small blog documenting updates, which neighbors added which cats posed with the mannequins, and funny incidents, like Mr. Dawson tripping over a mannequin arm while wearing reindeer antlers. By mid-December, the mannequins weren't just a prank, they were an institution. People drove by just to wave. Holiday cheer multiplied tenfold, all thanks to a little rebellion and a lot of creativity. And every time I looked out my window, I saw Karen glaring from her dark house across the street. But now the glare held no power. The mannequins and the neighborhood were watching her instead. After Karen's removal, the HOA held an emergency meeting to revise bylaws. The absurd creepy decor clause was abolished, and new rules emphasized reasonableness and community approval. I was asked to give a short speech. I kept it simple. Decorations are about joy, not fear. Let's enjoy holidays without micromanagement. Applause. Standing ovation. Neighbors began sharing their own holiday stories and decorations. Mini Nutcracker villages appeared on lawns, inflatable Santas returned, and one family even hung a string of lights spelling no more. Karen stayed silent. She attempted to decorate her own lawn the next year, but with strict rules in place, she couldn't provoke anyone. Her house remained sterile, like a museum exhibit of what happens when control goes unchecked. I documented every moment for my blog and social media, creating a Holiday Chronicles archive. The mannequins, of course, remained on my lawn. Kids still posed. Adults still laughed. One neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, said, "You've made this neighborhood famous." I shrugged. I just wanted a peaceful Christmas. The irony wasn't lost. It wasn't just peaceful. It was joyful, humorous, and a little ridiculous. Every holiday season, I remember that tiny wooden soldiers escalated into neighborhood legend. And Karen? Well, she became the story we tell at block parties. Remember when HOA Karen tried to ruin Christmas? With the neighborhood finally free, the first post-Karen holiday season was magical. The mannequins stood proudly in the yard, adorned with new scarves, hats, and tiny string lights. Kids ran around taking selfies. Parents laughed, sharing cocoa while pointing at each board member mannequin. I even created a small sign, Maplewood Estates Holiday Heroes, EST 2025. Paul brought hot chocolate and joked, "This is better than Disneyland." Neighbors organized a small block party. Carolers performed in front of my yard, and someone brought a snow machine. The mannequins, standing silently, seemed to smile approvingly. Even Karen, watching from her darkened window, couldn't dampen the spirits. Her occasional glare became a running joke. Every child walking by whispered, "Don't look at her." People started volunteering to add decorations. Tiny presents for the mannequins, miniature clipboards, and even a HOA headquarters sign. The local newspaper did a feature, calling it the most festive yard in the county, praising the creative community effort. It wasn't just a yard anymore, it was a symbol, a reminder that even in the face of absurdity, people could unite, laugh, and reclaim their joy. By Christmas Eve, every house was lit beautifully. Laughter echoed through Maplewood Estates, and my Nutcrackers, mannequins, and neighbors basked in collective victory. For the first time in years, the HOA wasn't a source of tension, it was a punchline. And as I sipped my cocoa watching the twinkling lights, I realized the best holidays weren't about perfection. They were about people, humor, and a little bit of pettiness. Years later, my yard became a holiday tradition. Every December, new homeowners asked if they could see the famous Nutcracker army. The mannequins were refreshed each year, sometimes dressed in Santa outfits, sometimes with silly props. The community embraced it fully. Annual tours began. Kids who grew up in the neighborhood told their friends about the year we defeated HOA Karen with wooden soldiers. Karen eventually moved away, leaving her empty, meticulously organized house behind. The irony was delicious. She left and Maplewood Estates thrived, brighter, more cheerful, and more united than ever. The HOA learned its lesson. Rules became guidelines, prioritizing fun and reason over fear and control. The neighborhood block parties grew in size, attracting families from surrounding areas. Every time I set up my decorations, I remembered the chaos, the petty revenge, and the sweet taste of victory. Even Paul still stopped by every year, bringing cocoa and joking about new maneuvers for the mannequins. The story of Karen's reign, and the holiday uprising, became a tale told with laughter, emojis, and a little bit of dramatic flair at every holiday gathering. And the Nutcrackers? They became legends. Silent, sturdy, and eternal. Looking back, I realize what started as a small dispute over Nutcrackers turned into something much bigger. A fight for fairness, humor, and community spirit. The neighborhood transformed from tense compliance to joyful rebellion, all thanks to a little creativity, a lot of persistence, and life-size mannequins. Every year, the mannequins stand proudly in my yard, reminders of absurdity, justice, and holiday spirit. Kids pose, neighbors cheer, and the legend of HOA Karen versus Nutcracker army grows. The HOA is calmer now, rules are reasonable, and Maplewood Estates thrives. Residents smile freely, laughter echoes down the streets, and every passerby knows that standing up for what's right doesn't have to be boring. It can be hilarious. I've learned that sometimes the most effective way to deal with overbearing control is patience, documentation, humor, and a little bit of flair. And while Karen is gone, the story remains. A cautionary tale of what happens when someone underestimates a calm, reasonable homeowner armed with holiday decorations and determination. This season, as the lights twinkle and the Nutcrackers salute, I sip my cocoa with a smile. Justice has been served. Laughter has prevailed. And the life-size HOA mannequins watch silently, ever vigilant, ever festive. Merry Christmas, Maplewood Estates. And to all the Karens out there, beware the Nutcrackers.